Hi everyone, this is Tosca Di Matteo and I'm super excited to be with you today. We're going to be talking to Eva Ghiotti today about transitions because she is a woman that has experienced so many transitions in her life and has made such great things out of dealing with uncertainty, dealing with fear, and working through those big concepts that I talk about a lot. Eva is the founder of Merchants of Beauty, and I have a blog post about her business on my blog. So just go under articles, under the Spotlight series, and you'll see it there. And she actually has a wonderful offer going on for her beautiful candles on her website, again, Merchants of Beauty. But what I love about Eva is that, you know, she's like an entrepreneur through and through. And so I think there's like a certain ability that entrepreneurs have to deal with uncertainty that maybe not everybody has when we come from worlds of, let's just say, corporate environments or places where we feel more certain. So I'm just excited for her to pop on. It should be happening super soon. And some of the things we're going to talk about are staying connected to your why during times of uncertainty, talking about what it means to take risks and risk tolerance when it comes to transitions, and also going into things head first when you don't really know what's going to happen. So here she is. I see her now, and we're going to bring her on. Excellent.
Hi,
Hello. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited for this. We've been talking about it for a while, so I'm glad to be here with you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. It's great to see you. I'm so excited to chat. I've been looking forward to it all day.
Yay. Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you. We've kind of been on each other's platforms, so this has been really exciting to do this and collaborate in a new and exciting way that I think that like women we do really well. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so nice. Thank you for all the support. And I think it's just wonderful getting to work alongside other women business owners who have amazing missions and who are looking to just reach people with wonderful messaging. So I think it's really great to show that you could be from a bunch of different industries, but there's always a common ground to come together on, which I think is a really nice thing.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, before you jumped on, I was kind of sharing a little bit about you and Merchants of Beauty and what we're going to talk about transitions today and all the kind of topics that fall under that, which are plentiful for sure. And I started to share a little bit about the fact that you've been an entrepreneur and that creates, I think, some level of comfort around uncertainty that maybe some folks aren't so used to that have roles that have regular paychecks and things of that nature. So I'd love to actually just have you introduce yourself, share what you want to about yourself, about your organization, and what your why is. I'd love to
Sure.
just start with that.
Sure. So I'm Ava, everybody. It is great to be here with you today. I am the founder of Merchants of Beauty, which is a boutique candle company. And through scent, color palettes, as well as the design work that we screen on our candle glass, we really explore different themes of storytelling. And the idea behind the brand really is that each design has a different meaning attached to it. So if you were looking to be inspired through the sentiment of accomplishment, for example, we have our Smells Like Success candle. So not only through the fragrance, but also through the color palette and design, you're offered an opportunity to kind of be inspired and have your mood uplifted, and to also have your home environment uplifted through those elements too. So that's kind of the mission behind Merchants of Beauty. My why, correct? That was one of the
Yeah,
questions. My why.
sure.
So I think my overarching why with the brand is to really inspire people. I think that, you know, the objects that we surround ourselves with can have so much meaning. They really have the opportunity to uplift us. what we place in our homes, what we place in our office, what we walk by and see consistently. And that's my goal with Merchants of Beauty. It's really to create not only a candle, but to really see this candle as a meaningful object, and to have this beautiful, meaningful object, a piece of your home space, a piece of your workspace, maybe when you travel, but to know that you have something to look to that can inspire your mood, uplift you, and just help you set that story in motion, maybe when you just need a little something. So that's really my goal with the whole brand. So I'm excited to continue building out collections. There's some really fun stuff slated for next year that I think is going to resonate really well. So I'm very excited about the storylines that we'll be exploring. So yeah, stay tuned.
Wow, that I love, I love that. And it's funny because especially in these really challenging times, it's these simple things, the things that we create rituals out of that can really bring us, like you said, like uplift us in ways that are really meaningful. And I'm actually sitting here today. I'm in my friend's house. She just bought a new house, her first home, like in the middle of COVID.
Congratulations.
Um, and we were talking about how really you have to make a house a home by creating the environments that you want. And to me, it's through those environments that we can come into ourselves because we feel comfortable. And I think that even these little actions. There's Aisha there. She's like, hey, yeah, I bought my new house. But it's these little actions that can make all the difference. I guess, and coming back to this topic of transitions, right? Like, how do we bring comfort in situations that are uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk a little about your transitions and how you find comfort even when it feels very uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make such a good point, turning things into your own. This, how do we create that comfort in these times of transitions? And, all of us for this whole entire year, there's been so much uncertainty. So I think, that reigns true no matter what, whether COVID would have happened or not. You could try to do as much as you can to plan, but there's definitely a certain amount of unpredictability that comes with life. But I think one of the things that is really amazing about taking a step back and saying, okay, I do have my environment around me. So there's an ability there to really transport yourself with how you surround your environment with certain objects. And I think that's something that could really help a transition, because you do have control over your space, whether it's connecting to a ritual and having something in your space signify that, whether it's really maybe refreshing a certain corner in your home because maybe that's where you go to meditate, maybe it signifies something. So I think taking the time to kind of design those little spaces, and also to really connect with objects that kind of give you a moment just for yourself when all of those transitions are going on, to kind of keep you grounded, that's something that we definitely do have control over. So I think it's important to remember that sometimes when we feel like everything is swirling because of all those transitions, that there are little things available to us that could make a really big difference. And I think that was a lesson I wish I would have held on to earlier in life when I made my big transition, which was switching over from living in Los Angeles. I was a makeup artist out there, and I moved back to New York City, which is where I'm born and raised. And that kind of started my creative journey, I guess I'll call it that, which led me to the development of Merchants of Beauty. And we had spoke at one point, Tuska, a little earlier, just about some fear that is often attached to making those transitions. And that was certainly something that had come up for me. I had been in Los Angeles for 4 years as a makeup artist, and I just wasn't happy out there anymore. And I was so afraid to say that out loud. And when Tuska and I had spoke previously, also, we spoke about this concept of ditching the math, and that, life isn't linear, and kind of crushing the box. And it's all these kind of little phrases that I was not living by. I was so in my head about it needs to be A to B. I chose to move out here. I chose this as my career. Am I able to switch from this? Am I able to make a transition? Is there an expectation that I stay in this? So that really kind of began my journey. And that's been really interesting to work through. And it's been something that I've learned that the more you could stay connected to your why and why you're choosing to do something, that's essentially what really helps you get through those transitions. So it was a good amount of work that went into kind of getting to this place.
Oh my gosh, it's such a great, thank you for sharing, it's such a great tool to come back to. I think especially um, when businesses or individuals, we get really disrupted like we are right now. And it's very easy to feel lost and like, oh my gosh, and what matters most and what do I really care about? Because that's being really put in front of our faces. Like, yeah, what do you care about? And where are you going to spend your time and how are you going to make that work?
Yes.
Um, and what I love is that, I think sometimes when we make choices in our lives, we then feel like that's the forever choice. And then we can really get trapped by that. And I work with clients all the time that kind of, the word quit, is like, no, I can't quit. Oh, yes, you can. You can take things off your plate
Yeah.
as much as you want in order to get back to, yeah, what really brings you joy. Like what really do you want to do? So how did you, when you came back and you weren't really sure, but you made the decision, it sounded like that you knew you didn't want to stay on the West Coast and you came back, but you didn't really know exactly what that would look like.
Had no idea what that was going to look like. And I think you brought up such an amazing point too, right? The word quit, it has such a negative connotation, right? You're like, I quit this, or people would say to me like, oh, what happened? It didn't work out. And it was like, no, it worked out great because it got me to realize that that wasn't where my heart was anymore. And it got me to realize that there was another path available to me that I could explore. So it was, I think it's challenging. To step out of one situation that you're so familiar with, right? Because in a way, we become creatures of habit, or at least I do. You're comfortable, it's familiar, you know what the deal is, right? So you step out of that world, and essentially you're like, okay, where do I start again? What direction do I want to go in? How do I curate this life that I'm envisioning for myself, and what does that look like? And I wish I could hop on here and say, like, these are the 7 things that I did, and this is exactly what you have to do, and this is where you'll land up. But it's a lot of like, take 2 steps forward, 3 to the side, 4 backwards, go in a U-turn. And I think that's the beauty of the journey when you look back on it, is that I think if you're open to what can come to you and you are not so married to the plan, I think it's great to have a loose plan, to know where you want to go, what you're interested in, what you're interested in building, so that you could really set your goals up and work toward that. I really do think that's important. I think being married to that is where a lot of resistance comes in. And I think that's where you essentially miss out on some really big opportunities. There's opportunity everywhere. There's opportunity for partnership. There's opportunity for new design direction. There's opportunity to take your brand in a different direction. There's personal opportunity to say, I'm really enjoying something that became a hobby. Maybe there's a way for me to incorporate that into what we're building. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And I think not being afraid to just learn and put yourself out there. Prior to having Merchants of Beauty, my mom holds a patent for a bouquet holder for brides. It's a bridal accessory. And I had led project management for that. And we went down the 3D engineering and the 3D manufacturing route for it. So I worked with our designers from design inception through manufacturing. And it was a business that I had absolutely no idea about, no idea what I was doing. However, if you're determined and you want to bring something to market, you will, and you'll figure it out. So I would say my one piece of advice is be humble. Ask when you need help. Let somebody know, hey, this is my first go at this, but we're really committed to the project, and I'm here to learn and work alongside of you. That's the one thing that has served me my entire career building a business, is just be humble enough to say, hey, I'm learning. Because if you go in there trying to act like you know it, they know that you don't know it. It's one of those fine lines. So it's like, be humble enough to say that, and you will be surprised how many people will be willing to work with you in a different capacity so that you could really understand it, so that you guys could have a really successful partnership together. And that's something that I've also learned as a business owner too, is you want to make sure that you are investing for yourself and for your business in people who are willing to have those two-way street partnerships. You know, you want to work with manufacturers or designers or business partners who are willing to have those dialogues with you. You know, when you're saying, hey, I'm trying to learn, can we review that again? Or, so that's something that I've come to learn too, that you're not always backed into a corner to work with people, that you definitely do have control over how you structure your team and the quality and value that you're looking for in those partnerships.
Oh man, I mean, like I was like taking some notes here. Like there's so many nuggets of wisdom, and I'm like so glad we're recording this because I'm just going to tell my clients, don't take my word for it. You know, listen to Ava. Like she knows what she's talking about. And I think just even to take that last concept that you talked about in terms of the team that you support yourself, you know, that you surround yourself with, that's supporting you. And that, to me, that applies whether you're in business for yourself or whether you're figuring out how to get through a hard time or whether you're
Absolutely.
want to get, you know, be a rock star in a new role or you're looking to transition and it's so much harder to do it alone than
Absolutely.
to pick and choose the very right people based on what you need in that moment.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
it's so true. I agree with you. I think it's personal and professional. You know, they say you're only as good as, you know, the people around you, the team that you surround. You know, you can't do it all, you know, and even in your personal life, like there will be moments where you need guidance or encouragement. It's, you know, it's really important to have those people in your corner. And I think I bring it up from a business perspective because I think sometimes as a small business, you face a lot of challenges as a little guy, right? Especially when you're trying to manufacture and make products. You know, quantities are, you know, what you think is a big quantity really is not, and it kind of affects some relationships. So there will be some opportunities that won't be available because of that, but don't ever let your size discourage you from building those or going after those or showing a company how ambitious you are and the opportunity to work with a new emerging brand and the potential that might be there. So I would encourage you to never take no for an answer. You know, sometimes you need to walk away from things that are just not the right fit, but definitely don't have that perspective that, oh, I'm a small business, that's not the arena we could play in. Because you could play in absolutely any arena. You just got to knock on the door and see who answers it.
oh, I love that. You know, it's really about the mindset, right? That we go into things, and do we go in there with, you know, playing really big, and going there shooting for the stars, or do we go in, you know, kind of playing on a small side because we're afraid of disappointment or we want to avoid disappointment.
Yeah.
Um, and there's I think there's so many people, especially right now, that are turning their side hustles into something bigger, you know, or even turning everything and having their hustle become the big, you know, the big engine for income and at unprecedented rates. Um,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, and so we talked a little bit about taking risks and risk tolerance because that is such a big part of jumping into something that's unfamiliar, that's uncomfortable. It's part of transitioning.
Yeah.
And so what is your take on like risk taking and risk tolerance?
Whew. That is definitely something that has become an acquired skill. It is not something that I had all along. It is something that I think you learn to cultivate, and you learn what you just mentioned. You learn to have a certain mindset shift around risk. I think back to, I remember exactly where I was. It's funny how your memory will take you directly back to places sometimes. I went back to school in Los Angeles to get my esthetician's license for skincare. And I was in the alley. We used to hang out back there and just like get coffee on our breaks. So I was back there. And I remember just being so on the fence about moving back to New York and saying, oh my God, like I've spent 4 years out here. What is going to happen if I go home? What is going to happen if I switch careers? And I remember saying to myself, I don't lose my ambition. I don't lose my determination. I do not lose my tenacity. I lose none of the things that have gotten me this far. Just because I don't live here anymore, just because I want to change my career, does not mean I lose any of that. And I think that was my way of reminding myself that, yes, this is a risk. This is uncomfortable. This choice potentially comes with a lot of risk. But what do I know is certain? I know who I am, and I know that I have ambition, and I know that I have tenacity, and I know that I am driven. So believe in yourself, because you are the person who got you this far. You are definitely capable of switching something up or changing it, because what you poured into getting yourself here, you will pour into the next thing that you do. So I think it's a little bit of belief that definitely comes into that risk space. And I think from a business perspective, which is quite possibly the hardest pill to swallow, which I have absolutely struggled with wrapping my mind around it, you know, being 100% realistic, you can work your ass off and build the greatest business. There's no promise it's going to succeed. There are so many things out of your hands. Will the economy go bust? Will your factories go out of business? Will the stock that you need, will the crop no longer be available? I mean, there are so many variables that could take you out of the game. And that, I think, is something that you have to acknowledge, and you got to remember why you're doing it. Are we being smart about our investment? Are we being smart about how much inventory we're ordering? Are we being smart about our marketing and our sales strategies? You know, I think you get to a point where, yes, there is a lot of risk that maybe something will be unsuccessful, but what are you doing to try to mitigate some of that? Like, what systems are you putting in place? Who are your team players? Do we have a sales strategist working with us? How is our social media platform growing? What coaches are we working with? So these are things that over time, I have come to really look at and shift my perspective around, because I feel like if you could strategize and have strength in your approach and the way you are choosing to approach building your business and the team that you build around you, yes, you always face the risk of so many things going wrong. I mean, you could risk having your inventory being lost on a freight shipment. That was something we had 30% of our glasses break on a production line last production we ran. You know, it's like, and the response was, oh, we think the filament, there was something wrong with the filament. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, you know, we're like, okay, that I never thought I'd be having that conversation. Or we need to go back and retest because the paint formulation changed. And there's a chance that it might not be able to withstand the heat of the flame and the corrosion of the fragrance, because fragrance could be corrosive against paint when we hand paint our glass on the inside. That was another thing. It cost me a year of testing. I couldn't control that timeline. I was not happy about it, but you learn how to make it work. What can we do with our time if this is the circumstance? How can we still be productive? What perspective can we take? Because the reality is you still need to keep moving it forward. So you could either crumble and live in that place of, oh my God, this just went so sideways, or you could have a moment, grab a tissue, scream into a pillow, whatever you need to do, no judgment. I've done it all. Go get your nails done if you just want to be distracted. And then kind of, okay, cool. How are we now going to problem solve this? I think my mom is actually on here. My mom owned a business in New York for many, many years. And when I started the business, she literally said, the one job you have as a business owner is to problem solve. That's the only job you have. You have no other job. You do not design. You don't do anything else. All you do is problem solve. And it's so true, because that's what you do. You begin to creatively problem solve because these things continue to come up. So I was pretty resistant to that in the beginning, because I think when you're working so hard to really just put something out there that you poured so much passion into, and you have so much enthusiasm about really wanting to bring that to market and to connect people with it, it's discouraging when you keep getting hit. And you're like, I just want to roll this thing forward. But you realize it's a bigger lesson for what will come as your business grows. There will be bigger problems. There will be bigger risk. But it's all in the way you handle it, because if you can learn to really handle that correctly, it opens up so many more doors for your growth. So I think those are lessons you learn when you're in them. I think people could tell you them a million times, but I think when you're in them, you really start to kind of learn who you are as a boss and also as a business owner, how you want to frame and structure things for your risk tolerance.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're dropping so much knowledge, and I hope I don't even know if you like can these concepts that you're talking about that you've been through yourself are precisely the kinds of things that so many people struggle with, finding their way through it. And I see it, day to day in my coaching and consulting business. And what you're and I think about the moms out there that have to deal with like having kids and having a job, right?
Oh my
And
God.
they're doing nothing but problem solving, right? And so all of this, what it comes down to, for me as I'm processing everything you're sharing is that coming back to trust ourselves and that we've done hard things before. It may not have been to this magnitude, but if we can come back to ourselves and remember, you know what? I've been through some things. I've figured it out,
Yeah.
and I can rely on my strengths, my inner strengths, to get me through this. And in addition to that, watch what it is that we're saying to ourselves. Are we being hard on ourselves? Are we creating stress for ourselves on top of the stress? Because we're in this like whirlwind of feeling like the world is on our shoulders, rather than really stopping and saying, if I'm doing the best that I can do, if I'm using my resources, if I'm staying grounded in myself, then how can I just allow and trust and surrender to the outcomes?
Yeah. I think you make such a good point, and I'm definitely not the person. If you need help with manufacturing, I could speak on that, but I'm not the person to speak to about not being hard on yourself. It's like certain things come so easily, and that it's not helpful. It is definitely not helpful because there's a place to have a moment, but then there's also a place professionally where your business needs your attention and it needs to move forward because that's where you've chosen to invest. That's where your why is. So I think that there's a fine line between that and also learning how much energy to expend on something. How much energy do I have to expend on this? Because we can't let this whole other list of obligations go by because one thing went wrong on a production line and now we're gonna have a meltdown about it. So and those are the pains of being a small business and not having a staff too.
Right.
So because everything requires your attention, everything becomes a priority. So when you get one of those really pressing emails or that phone call that comes through, you're like, okay, I actually do have to stop everything else. This does take priority. How can I remain in a space where we will handle this and I will be able to put my energy back into the obligations that were, on my plate for today? So that becomes part of a juggling act too. But the more you do it, the more you realize what an energy suck some of those bad habits are. And recognizing that when you finally get to the point where you're like, this is not worth it because I still have all this going on. That's really positive, that's really great, that's moving us in the right direction. So we need to deal with this in an effective way and we need to keep it moving. And I think that's kind of the name of the game in business is you don't really have this space to kind of, really harbor, or just kind of fixate on things that need to be taken care of and keep it moving. So I think that's a space that you learn how to throw your fear out the window a little bit and, trust yourself that you're handling it right. You're making the right decision in that moment, that you're there, you're aware, you're present, you're doing the best that you can with it, and we're moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The idea of being aware of what's draining our energy and how can we cut those things out where possible in order to free ourselves up for the good energy, and to have energy to address those really hard things. um, because I think there's something I talk about a lot, which is the drama triangle, and we can get caught up in these three roles. It's rescuer, victim, or persecutor. And when things go wrong, it's easy for us to jump in, and we can be in all three of those roles in the same conversation with ourselves. Um,
Absolutely.
and so rising above that to say, how do I get out of this? Because that's just an energy suck and that's not productive, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, if there was like an award for that, like in the Oscar goes to, yeah, because, we've all been there, and I think it goes back to kind of something that we touched upon earlier. I think when you're new to a certain industry or you're new to doing something, right, you don't want to show up in this light where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Because there's always that kind of fear of judgment that comes along with that. But, the reality is you also don't want to, like I used to think, okay, like we'll show up and you pretend like you kind of know what's going on. It's like that's not helpful either. So I think it's learning to let go of that fear of judgment and say, this is who I am. I'm committed to this. This is the business I want to build. I've never done this before. So these are things that I'm going to have to learn along the way, and getting comfortable with that and not having this almost like shame around the fact, I should know this. What should you know? You've never done this before. You've never walked into a manufacturing plant that does that particular thing. How would you know how that works from the way you need to submit your orders to what your purchase orders look like to a line sheet, which you submit for, buyers that would like to buy from you. I was Googling a line sheet the night before I had to submit it like 4 years ago. I was like trying to design it in Microsoft Word. Like we have come so far since then, but I'll never forget that when you talk about humble beginnings and being like, okay, we're going to fake it till we make it, and we're going to figure out this document because you're so excited to actually get that relationship and to build it that, you've invested so much, you want to look professional. So it's like, I get the space that it comes from, but I would invite everybody, you're going to make mistakes, step into them, and just be honest, with who you're working with and that team that you're building, that, you're there, you're committed, you're excited about these projects, but there's going to be things that will have a learning curve, and I think being direct about questions too. How can we do this moving forward so that it's more streamlined for the both of us? What format would you like me to send that to you? And what do our reorders look like with you? Just really practical stuff. And it all comes down to, you had mentioned this earlier too, communication. Communication is huge. Communicate, and don't have the expectation that the other party or the other partnership or the other manufacturer, whoever you're working with, is going to be the one to lead with that. Take the reins yourself and say, okay, like this got kind of confusing. Moving forward, we know that we would like to see this go differently. Say, hey, when do you have some time to hop on a call so we could talk about this? We're really excited about this partnership. We would love to see it go just a little smoother last time. And next time, I know there was a little back and forth between us. So I think that comes back to fear and transitioning too. Transitioning from I'm just here to I'm showing up as the owner, the leadership position. This is my business. I'm stepping into that role. I'm stepping into that leadership position because I want to be able to lead the relationships that I have so that we could collectively really build this out to be something successful.
Yeah, the idea of communication, the idea of really being able to stay in your authenticity even when you don't know, even when you're asking questions that you may be embarrassed to ask. Like all of these things, it comes with the territory, and I think it's how we can become better at transitions because we're giving ourselves permission, like you said, to make mistakes, to ask the questions that may be embarrassing. And, I think also if you find yourself in relationship or in partnership with somebody that wants to shame you for asking questions, like maybe that's the time to consider, maybe this isn't the right place for me, as well, or this isn't the right relationship, because it makes me think about a time when I was new in a role and on a brand and in an industry. And I was very forthright with asking questions in these meetings. And my manager at the time, like, shamed me and said, you got to fake it till you make it. And that wasn't the philosophy that I subscribe to. I subscribe to, I want to do my job well. And
Yeah.
if that means I have to learn something, then I don't deserve to be shamed. Nobody deserves to be shamed ever, but that's not something that's constructive. But those were very different philosophies about how I did my job and how she went about hers. And that said a lot. It said a lot about, okay, what do I need to know about having this relationship with my boss now? Because I see that she has that perspective. So, um, and this conversation brings me to a topic that we talked at length about before around mentorship and networking as part of transitioning and having the support that you need and setting yourself up for relationships that can really be instrumental. So, what like um, what role has networking played for you? Because I know that you really shifted your understanding of what networking was, and I'd love to hear about that piece of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to circle to one thing that you just mentioned with your former boss. I think if life has taught me anything through two different careers in the makeup world and now building a business in about my fifth year it took me about 4 years in development and then this first year that we've been out there, is you will meet all different types of people in any industry that you are in. And many years ago, a very famous makeup artist had told me, you will find great people at the top and you will find
Mm,
assholes at the top also. And I thought it was literally the most valuable piece of information that anyone could have ever given you, because you will find different types of people
mm,
everywhere. But that's where your choice comes in to say, these are what our brand values are, these are what my
mm,
personal values are, and these are the types of people that we want to work with. These are the types of businesses that we want to build relationships with. And whatever works for you. I mean, you decide that. And I think that's great. Maybe there's some people who would feel great working alongside your former manager because that was
right.
the ideology that they subscribed to, but that's not yours. And I think that's what's really great. I think just the awareness of not everybody is going to act like you, not everybody is
Mm,
going to see your perspective, but there is certainly an availability of opportunity and people out there that will fit what is important to you. And I think it's important to continue to look for those relationships until you find them and to not settle. I
mm,
think sometimes, with business, you are in situations where, maybe it wasn't your first choice, but you do have to go with something because you have to look at the greater picture and what you're working toward. But you could always have boundaries and be very clear about how you want those relationships to go. So I think that's something important to mention. Um, and with that being said, yes, we had spoke about networking and coaching. And when I moved back to New York, and I was, trying to find my way there for a little while. And when I eventually, founded Merchants of Beauty and really started with our first candle and started to kind of cultivate the development of the brand, I felt very disconnected. It was very isolating to work alone. And in a way, it was like, okay, how do I find, is there a networking group I could go to, or are there different people that I could meet that are kind of in this space who kind of understand the struggles of starting something from scratch? And the typical networking groups, it's like, you think of like this name tag and it feels a little stuffy. And so being here in New York, I wound up being connected to a group called NYC Co-working, which met on Fridays in New York City, and it's actually still being done. It's virtual. And that was an amazing space to just come and to
mm,
work with other people, to bounce ideas, to build relationships. As I continued to put myself out there more, I kind of made a commitment to myself. I said, over 2 years, I'm going to go to every event. And I'm going to go to every event that inspires me creatively, where I could learn something that is a workshop. And it was really through those events, in these workshops, in this non-traditional networking way, that I really networked and met an amazing group of people within New York City. And that to me was so incredibly valuable because
mm,
I'm a huge believer that you can be inspired by so many different people, especially when your work is very creative driven. For me, I'm inspired by other people's stories and, hearing how other people create their art. So that was something really amazing. So I would encourage, even if it's virtual now, still stay connected to those communities. That was something that was really big for me. And I know I had also mentioned mentorship. Mentorship is something that has been tremendous, especially when it has come to really specific skills that I do not have and looking for guidance in that capacity. Work with mentors who are not going to tell you what you want to hear. Constructive criticism is the way to do this. It is the way for personal growth and professional growth. So I would definitely encourage that, mentorship, to have mentorship in your corner, to really challenge you and to really hold you accountable, and to be able to listen to the experiences that have come before you, and take everything with a grain of salt. You don't need to listen to anybody's experience and take it and turn it into your own, but there's a lot to be learned from what other people have gone through and what they're willing to share. And you never know when that might help you with maybe a pitfall that you have, or it might inspire you in some way. So I would say definitely put yourself out there. Continue to find really great supportive communities. Communities are amazing ways to connect with, to just kind of keep connecting with people too. So I'm a big fan of 6 Degrees Society. I'm a member of 6 Degrees Society, which does really great programming every month. I'm also part of their mastermind, which is amazing. I share space with 9 other business owners, and it's great. We meet every 2 weeks, and it has an incredible amount of accountability that comes with it, and it's just a really great space to talk about your business and to really help cultivate your growth. So I think it's really important, especially if you're somebody who works completely solo. It gets lonely. It was really nice. I miss the networking component. With everything that has happened, this year, I really do. I miss that piece of it, but I'm really grateful that we have virtual as an option to still be able to connect and be inspired. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Yeah, I feel the same way, that sometimes, like, I feel like I operate in a vacuum and can really use, a perspective and, counsel and connection. And I think that just comes back to, like, giving ourselves what we need, and, and and not shying away from it because of either fear of how that may be seen or viewed, or concern that you're taking somebody's time. But we talked at length about networking being a value exchange. It's never, you're never just receiving. Like, you're also always adding value to whatever conversation, just by nature of having a unique experience in this world, and not diminishing or undervaluing that for yourself, even when it is when you are looking for added value.
Yeah.
um, because
I I I agree completely. I think it's one of those things that just by having those conversations, sometimes it really is, it's a two-way street there, and that kind of grows from there too. Like, your willingness after meeting somebody and having a wonderful connection with them, if they called you and said, could you lend me 10 minutes? I know somebody who's looking to do something. Absolutely. I'm going to be inclined to say, absolutely, let's get you on my calendar. I would love to, pay it forward and have a conversation, or let me make an introduction for you. I think it's that generosity that people have shown toward me too, as my business has grown, to say, Ava, you have a great product. We absolutely love it. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. And you start to pay it forward as you continue to grow. And I think one of the most beautiful things is being able to pay it forward and say, oh my God, I have somebody, I want to introduce you to them. I think you guys are going to hit it off. I think there might be some really great synergy there. And you really start to see that there is a community and a huge group of people who really work like that. And you start to build a really nice network of support. And that's really important. Your network is really important. And not from the perspective of financial gain or business growth, but truthfully just from a perspective of growth, to be able to check in, to be able to get some guidance, to be able to get some business guidance, maybe from somebody who's come before you in a certain industry. There's a lot that really benefits from just having a really great, sincere network that you build relationships with.
Yeah, what a great message, and I think even more important now when we all feel more isolated than ever to know that that's still available to us to have that part of what we need. And as I'm hearing you talk, and especially as you started to share in the very beginning the story of your company, um, you have such a strong and articulated voice. Your story, your perspective, and um, whether the people who are watching now and in the future are building their own brand, or whether they're storytelling for their own career. Um, what what was really helpful for you in discovering your voice personally and professionally?
Hmm. I think it was staying connected to my why
Mm.
and just not really getting to a point where you could hear people's opinions, but they are no longer impactful. I think that you're the only person who could fully understand why you were on your own personal path, what you see in it that draws you to it, the goals that you have, where you are heading, what you would like to accomplish. You're the only person who will truly ever know, like, the depth and the connection of what that is for you. And I think for a lot of solo
Mm.
entrepreneurs, when you're starting out, and also as you continue to build your company, you are the one who built it. You remain connected to your why. And I think sometimes people have opinions about things that they've never taken a chance at, maybe because fear has held them back, maybe because they didn't see that opportunity as available. There are tons of different reasons. But I think sometimes it's easy to have an opinion about stuff when you haven't really walked in those shoes, and I'm
Mm.
sure I'm guilty of having that opinion towards something or someone else at some point. It doesn't come from a malicious place, and you understand that. But I think when you take a step back, when you're really connected to your why, your path, your route, your actions, they don't have to make sense to anybody except you. And I think when you could fully embrace that and show up and say, this is me, this is how we're building this brand, this is why I'm building it, this is how I'm, moving toward my personal goals and my personal mission, you're the only one who needs to know that, because life is short and those days go by quick. So that would be the one thing I would say: get comfortable with your why
Mm.
and really learn to take opinions with a grain of salt. Be
Mm.
open to constructive criticism from people that you trust, mentorship, the support of your family members or your friends, whatever that looks like for you. Definitely be open to constructive criticism. Be open to having your perspective challenged. I think these things are all really great things that help us grow and get stronger. But when it really comes down to it, know your why and stay so connected to it. Because if you can answer that question, it will be your guiding light professionally and personally, regardless of any chatter that might come into your space.
Oh man, preach. I'm like, yes, yes, talk about it. Yes. And we have Ashley who joined. She says, I'm living for this advice. Yes, you definitely hit a chord here. And it's funny because, you know, it's such a great sentiment as like we're kind of, coming to a close on this talk about a Tuesday, that in a world in which we are getting so much external input, so much external, uh, influence, that now more than ever, so much of what I do with my clients is help them to get back to themselves, come back to themselves, whether they're individuals or businesses, because it don't matter what the competition is doing. If what you're doing isn't aligned with your truth, it's not going to matter. If you go and create something that's going to compete with this other, it doesn't matter, because it's it's about finding what's true for you, and then following that with everything that you've got, and trusting that your why is your North Star, and so valuable, in in just staying grounded and keeping the faith that like you know better than anyone else what is right for you. And even as a coach, as a coach, my philosophy is I don't have the answers for you. My role is to be with you on the journey of
Yeah.
discovering your own answers and your own truth. And so, but we talk about, feedback and staying open to that. And my perspective on that is that sometimes when we have seedlings of ideas
I love
and
that. Feelings.
there are babies that we have to protect them from people who may be projecting, from people who may be afraid of uncertainty and afraid of like they don't see the end, and so it's hard for them to encourage it. But
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. What matters is, do you see why this seed makes sense for you in this moment? You know?
I think you make such an amazing point too about being a coach and being there on the journey, right? Like you can't give people the answers, and I think that was something too in going through the trials and tribulations of switching careers, moving back to the East Coast, building a business, all this stuff, where at one point I was like, yeah, no, you could get all the mentorship in the world. You could have all the support from the communities around you. Nobody is going to give you the answer. Like, you're the only one. Like, you already have the answer. You just need to learn to be okay with it and be confident about it. So I think that was something that was part of the journey too. It's like you could seek, but when you find your confidence and when you connect back to that why, you'll see how much quicker you start making those decisions because you're doing them from a space of confidence and being in alignment with it. I think when you're kind of still in this space of fear, you're like, oh shit, like, do I need, approval? Let me run that by somebody. It, and you know it better than anyone else. You're the only person you have to run it by. But, it's putting in the work to get there, which is constant, that personal evolution. I'm a huge believer that the more you could cultivate for your mental discipline, right? Whether that's boxing, being physically active, being committed to something else, that's going to come through in your professional life. Because the more focused you could get and the more disciplined you could get, the more your professional world is going to benefit from that too. So I'm a huge believer in that. I think both go hand in hand, regardless if you have a small business, if you work for a firm. You don't have to be an entrepreneur for this to apply. I think it can apply to anybody. But I think, mental toughness is what really helps you push through the barriers personally and professionally.
Yes, and I'm sitting here and I'm just so elated by the guests that we have here, Rachel and Ashley and some of these women that embody that mental toughness that I know have been through hard times, hard transitions. A lot of people are in facing layoffs or furloughs or just that life is out of our control in general, and even in a so much more visible and apparent way right now. And everything that you've shared today in your journey, in what's worked for you. I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time to share as a wonderful example of how do you take the leap, how do you trust yourself, how do you, create practices for yourself that enable you to keep plowing through even the most difficult moments when you're trying something new and there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around that. So thank you for just inspiring me, and I'm sure that the audience here about, the brass tacks of what it looks like. Because, when you're sitting on Oprah's, chair in a couple of years with, on like her favorite things for Christmas with Merchants of Beauty
And you get a
candles,
candle, and you get a
and
candle,
you
and
get
you
a
get a candle,
candle.
and you get a candle, and you get a candle.
Yeah, like that this grind, like this journey is important, I think, for everybody to hear that it is the day in and day out of coming back to your why, of trusting yourself. That's what gets you through tough transitions. And you've just said it so eloquently with your examples and your life experience. So thank you for that so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me a space to talk. This was scary to do. It was scary to start a business. To anybody watching, it's not easy. I lost 2 years to manufacturing issues and development. Shit hits the fan constantly, but, stay the course. Stay the course, because on the moments where you think you're going to break, that you've had, like, that is it, you got so much more of a fight in you than you ever realized. And if it's in your heart and you really want it, you're going to find out how to get back up. You're going to get back on. You're going to do it again. You're going to solve the problem. You're going to be better for it. You're not going to make that mistake again. You will figure it out. Like, it will happen. Stay the course if it's in your heart, So thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I hope that whoever is, tuning in with us or watching this on the replay, I hope you feel inspired to, personally or professionally, just dig in, find that why, and just stay committed to it, and don't be so hard on yourself. It's a journey.
Yes, yes, and remind our audience here where to find your beautiful candles and how to reach out if they're interested.
So I am on Instagram, guys. I am Merchants of Beauty. We have the View Shop tab, which will show you our current collection that's currently available. And there is also an offer in Tuska's recent Spotlight series for her community as well, if you want to go check that out. You can also send me an email directly through Instagram at Merchants of Beauty, or you could also shoot me a DM. It is me. I manage the page. So if you have a business question, if I can connect you with somebody that might be helpful for what you are working on, please reach out. It would be my pleasure to do so. We have 2 limited release candles that are going to be launching, one in November and one in October. And I'm really excited about the themes. They are focused on being boldly, uniquely yourself, and stepping into your authenticity. And our November candle really speaks to mindfulness and the ability to transcend through imagination. And it is very whimsical, and it's a really beautiful theme, I think, to kind of say goodbye to 2020 and get us on the path for 2021.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I want to share that to everyone. I have the Glow and Flow candle, which I absolutely love. And it's such a great, like the quality, it's such a great gift. And as we kind of enter that season, I just encourage everyone to take advantage of the offer that's on my blog in the Spotlight series for Merchants of Beauty. You won't be disappointed by what you receive for sure. And I can't wait to get these special candles that are coming out. And that's the first I heard about the November one. And it sounds amazing. So I can't wait to find out what scent that is.
I cannot wait to share. Keep an eye on our Instagram. It's all gonna be on there. We'll be debuting it's a tuberose, it's a floral that we're doing for our first one in October. So we'll be debuting it on Instagram Live on October 14th. I will be in Los Angeles in Santa Monica for an event, and we'll be debuting it there. So I am super excited, but the sentiment is awesome, and it's all about authenticity, which I know that you work with your clients, and that's the name of the game. We got one shot at this thing, so we might as well be ourselves, right?
Oh my God, absolutely. What great advice to end this on. Thank you so much, Ava. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to our continued relationship and friendship, and your continued success.
Tuska, thank you so much, and same to you. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for having me on, and just your continued support, your kindness, your encouragement. I am so excited for the both of us. I am excited for everyone that joined us today. I know that, we will keep trucking through, and there will be magic for all of us.
Yes, indeed. I totally agree with that. All right. See you next time.
Bye, guys. Bye, Tuska.
Ciao for now. Bye, Ava. Thank you.
Bye.